everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Understanding Your Faith. In this video, we're going to look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, who she was, and give you a little bit of context and background behind her. So Mary, Jesus' mother, because there are a few Marys in the New Testament, was from Nazareth. Again, Jesus is from Nazareth. That is where Mary and Joseph lived. And it's the middle of nowhere. If you were to put it into modern context, that's not weird where they lived. Take 3. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Understanding Your Faith. In this episode, I'm going to say video, not episode. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Understanding Your Faith. In this video, we're looking at the Bible character, Mary, Jesus' mother. Going to give you some background and share a little bit more about who she was. Now, Mary, there are many Marys in the New Testament, so again, we're talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus. Some background for you. She is from Nazareth. That is basically the middle of nowhere. They had at this time, at most, but likely significantly less than 2,000 people. 2,000 people at most, but maybe as few as just a couple hundred people lived in Nazareth at the time when Jesus was going to be coming onto the scene, when he was going to be born. So it's literally the middle of nowhere. If you were to put Nazareth in, at least Nazareth in ancient times, into a modern day example, this place wouldn't even have a stoplight, let alone a stop sign. In fact, in John, when Jesus is calling his disciples to himself, one of his disciples, Nathanael, says, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Because that is where Jesus was from. It was a town, middle of nowhere. Again, most of us probably would never have heard of it if we lived back then. And that is where Jesus is from. That is where Mary and Joseph lived. Actually, she would have been called, or went by the name of Miriam, not Mary. In Aramaic, her native language, she would have gone by the name of Miriam, although in our language we call her Mary. Some more background behind her. She was very likely illiterate, not only because she was a woman, and in that time most women didn't read, but she was from a poor working class family, so pretty much nobody in her family was likely able to read. And of course, she was also Jewish. Now, she is related to Elizabeth. In Luke chapter 1 and chapter 2, when you see the birth narrative of Jesus, she encounters Elizabeth, who gives birth to John the Baptist 6 months before Jesus was born. Now, Elizabeth was a kin or a relative of some kind to Mary. Perhaps it was an aunt or a distant cousin, but they were related. And you can find more about that in Luke chapter 1 and chapter 2. Some more background behind Jesus and how he came onto the scene. Mary was visited by the angel Gabriel, and she was told that she had found favor with God and was going to give birth to the Son, who would be great and who would be given the throne of David. In other words, he would be the Messiah, the long-awaited Messiah from the lineage of David, was going to come through Mary. When Mary is encountered by an angel, she is anxious and she is afraid, and she's also confused because, spoiler alert, she was a virgin. She wasn't quite sure how that was actually going to happen. But soon after, she goes and visits Elizabeth, who I shared about previously. And as she is talking to Elizabeth, who is pregnant at the time with John the Baptist, John the Baptist in her womb leaps for joy at their encounter. And Elizabeth blesses Mary for her faith that she gets to be the one who gets to bear the Messiah. And then later, a few months after that, gives birth in Bethlehem. Again, that's the Christmas story, which you can get into during Christmas time. Now, later in life, we see Mary show up a few times during Jesus' ministry. She is actually present for Jesus' first miracle when he turns water into wine in the wedding of Cana in John chapter 2, where Mary asked Jesus to do something because the wine had run out at the wedding. And so that prompts Jesus' first miracle. She is also present at his crucifixion. Likely would have been around 50 years old at the time of Jesus' crucifixion. We don't know where Joseph was. It's pretty predominantly believed that he died before Jesus' earthly ministry began, before Jesus turned 30. But Mary was there at his crucifixion. On the cross, Jesus actually looks at John, his disciple, not John the Baptist, but John, the disciple John, and tells her to take care of Mary as his own mother. Because Jesus, as the firstborn into his family, would have had the responsibility to take care of his mother. Why Jesus asked John to do this and not any of his other brothers, the scripture doesn't actually tell us, but we do know this, that at the point of Jesus' death and burial, none of his brothers believed that he was actually the Messiah. It wasn't until after he resurrected and later on that they came to believe in him. So it could have partially been for the fact that he wanted someone who trusted and knew he was the Messiah to take care of his mother. And then the last reference of Mary in the New Testament is in Acts chapter 1, after the ascension of Jesus back into heaven. The disciples returned to Jerusalem and they prayed with other followers of Jesus, including Mary, or Mary was included in that group, and that is the last that we hear of her. And so there's a little bit about Mary, and I think for me personally, if there is one person other than Jesus in the New Testament that you could actually speak to, I'm not sure if there is anyone else you would rather choose than Mary. So many questions of what was it like to raise Jesus, who was perfect? What was it like to see him mistreated? What was it like to believe in your son as the Son of God? We know from Scripture she was faithful and she was loving. And of course, all of us are eternally indebted for bearing the Messiah on our behalf. And that's a little bit about Mary, the mother of Jesus.